Well, here we are live on a Friday night. Joe Chaffee and Joe Rayo on the Joe and Joe Weather Show as we're watching some choo-choo training going on across southeast Pennsylvania and New Jersey with some heavy thunderstorms and flash flooding, and some of those are starting to get very close to me at the moment, Mr. Rayo.
Unusual because out here, at least as of 5 minutes ago, it was beautifully sunny. I didn't expect to see the sun much at all today, but the sun is out, however temporarily it may be. And we had a very humid day out there today, Joe. I mean, the dew point temperature is probably hovering close to 70,
Hmm.
making for a very, very uncomfortable afternoon. Felt like I was walking into a sponge this afternoon.
Yeah, no, the dew points were high. We were basically cloudy till about 1 o'clock or so. Then it started brightening up, and then we had a little bit of sun from about maybe 1:30 till 3 or 4 o'clock, and then it just kind of got cloudy again. And as I said on the radar, seeing some storms to the south, which we're going to get to in a moment. Just trying to clear a few things off the screen so we don't have any issues tonight with regards to stuff freezing up. Tropical storm Cristobal is back as a tropical storm, and now we have tropical storm warnings up from Morgan City, Louisiana, east to the Florida Panhandle to about the Walton County line in the Panhandle, and that looks to be a big rainmaker. Although right now, when you look at the radars down there, a lot of times when you get tropical storms that are in the in the Gulf of Mexico ahead of it, you get subsidence to the north, so the air is sinking and drying. So it's an unusual day across southern Louisiana because there's almost always thunderstorms that pop up. And because of the sinking air, it's actually pretty quiet and pretty dry. I didn't see anything on the radar as of a couple of hours ago. We'll take a look again in just a second. But looks like wind and rain for them. I mean, I think it's going to be manageable to an extent, although, Mr. Rayo, I understand I saw a headline just a little while ago that some of the main pumps in New Orleans are down, and
Oh,
they're hoping that they get them up in time. Otherwise, there's going to be water all over the place.
yeah, and one thing that they also have to be concerned about, although I don't think it has as much of an effect on the ocean tides as it would, let's say, on the tides along the Gulf. You may know a little bit better about that than I do, but we do, after all, have a full moon today, and generally speaking, the highest tides associated with an astronomical, uh, as it's called, syzygy, the alignment of Sun, Earth, and Moon out in space.
Right.
Usually, the highest tides come in the day or two after full phase. So if it comes on Sunday, that just about coincides with the time when Cristobal is getting ready to make landfall along the Gulf Coast near New Orleans, and
Well,
that could add to their aggravation
the
of.
large circulation means a large area of gales. I noticed on the recon that's flying in there right now, we'll check it out. The gales were out for a couple of 100 miles north of where the center was. There were 50 to 55 knot winds, well to the north and west of where the circulation center is, and that's going to be the case probably all the way up. So yeah, they have storm surge warnings because of the fact that you're going to have this southeast wind, southeast to east wind to the east of the center. And as you said, the full moon creates a big problem with peak tides coming just as this storm is going to be making its approach and landfall later Sunday and into Sunday night.
And this system will continue to move on a trajectory almost due north or maybe north northwest after it makes landfall, which means it's going to push an inordinate amount of very heavy rain, not just into the Gulf Coast, but maybe as far north as the Central Plains and maybe even up toward the Great Lakes area.
Yeah, I just pulled up the visible satellite over us, and it has definitely gotten better organized. Very large system, but if you look at the top of the frame there of the satellite loop, there's again that subsidence going on across Louisiana and Mississippi and southern Alabama. So they're just having an absolutely delightful late afternoon and evening with a northeast breeze. The dew points probably have come down a little bit because of it. And now, of course, you're waiting. The west side of this doesn't have a whole lot of precip to it, but there's a ton of rain, and that's been into the east, and that's been impacting Florida. Another day of heavy rains in central and south Florida. They got flash flood watches there. So let's run through the tropical system, and then we'll come back to our own issues with the rain that is coming. First off, I'm just going to bring the radar up in over Florida and the Gulf states, and this rain. Now, while not directly from the tropical system, the that gyre that we've been talking about, the circulation and influence of that gyre goes well to the east, of some 600 miles to the east of where the storm center is. So it's dragging up all this deep tropical moisture across Cuba through the Florida Straits, and it's all manifesting itself as rain over the Florida Peninsula. Nothing going on in the northern part of the state. It's all mostly central and south at the moment on the radar. And then again, and you go out to the west, nothing. Louisiana, bone dry. Mississippi. This is really weird, Joe. It really is, because Louisiana, New Orleans, especially in starting in the summertime, you get it every day, 2 or 3 o'clock, a thunderstorm pops up somewhere in the vicinity of the right in the city or very close by. So it's really unusual to have a radar that doesn't have at least a couple of echoes on to see it like this. That won't be the case as we go into Sunday and into Monday, but at least for now, things are pretty calm.
It's going to be. I hope that everybody in New Orleans and everybody in the coastal Louisiana area are battening down, because while there may not be much going on right now, certainly by Sunday, it's going to be a whole different story. And I've been seeing reports, Joe, of rainfall amounts, uh, especially near landfall, of anywhere from as much as 6 to 12 inches. That's a little bit of an uptick over what we were talking about, or that we were suggesting just a couple of days ago. But again, a couple of days ago, just based upon experience from this type of weather pattern that we have seen innumerable times over the years, over the decades, my thoughts were, hey, this looks like, especially with all this tropical moisture, this looks like something where we could see some localized, amounts in excess of 15 inches. And I'm still thinking that.
It might be. No, listen. Certainly, if it just tracks a little bit slower, that may manifest itself. This thing has been a big rainmaker from the onset. I'm actually pretty impressed with how quickly this became a tropical storm today, because the center just barely emerged off the coast, and now it's moving north at 13. So it's moved out into the south central Gulf of Mexico a little bit faster than what was forecast by a handful of hours, but it made a difference. And also seeing on this sandwich view on the satellite, pretty fairly impressive looking center. There's not, the most of the convection seems to be north and northeast, at least for now, but there also looks to be a fairly well defined center here that is moving northward. So I'm kind of wondering, in terms of strengthening, I'm thinking it may get to strong tropical storm force before it makes landfall. Looks like the models today backed off a little bit on the shear that'll be up in the northern Gulf when it gets there. So it might have some time to tighten up as it moves northward. Maybe there's an outside chance that it makes a Category 1 hurricane. I think that's an outside chance, but I wouldn't rule it out completely.
Well, in the Gulf of Mexico, there may be little localized regions or areas where the temperature, although it's early in the season, but I mean, it gets up into the low and mid 80s, and certainly we all know the tropical systems just love nice warm water. So
Yes.
this is something that, and of course, the one thing that has always been the bane of hurricane or tropical forecasters is trying to forecast the intensity even on a short-term basis. So, we'll be watching over the next couple of days, and I wouldn't be surprised if this thing suddenly came up above Category 1. Somewhere around 75, 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, WPC has got 5 to 7 inches in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama, and 7 to 10 inches offshore. But you know what? That could certainly wind up being double that under the right circumstances. And you know, as you mentioned yesterday, if it gets underneath, you know, if the convective core gets underneath somebody for a long period of time, it's not out of the question um, for for some big rain amounts.
Well, you're
It's
absolutely
not a
true.
Harvey though, but I mean because it's going to keep on moving.
You're absolutely true. And in fact, just quickly throwing it, up to where we are, our location, some of the models are in central New Jersey are talking about something on the order of 3 to 5 inches just on heavy showers and thunderstorms alone. So if we can get that much from just some, localized heavy showers and storms, you can
Right.
just imagine what may very well happen in the next 48 to 72 hours along the Gulf Coast with a full-fledged tropical storm or possibly minimal hurricane.
So let's. I'm going to go. If for those of you who are interested, you could always go to tropicaltidbits.com and go to the section that says current storms. I'm sorry, aircraft recon. You can go to current storms too, but if you go to aircraft recon, you can get actually these recon flights that are the missions, and then you could take a look at the winds that they find. Now, the current recon. This is as of the last report in was at 7 o'clock. The plane is on the lower left. I don't know if you could see it on the screen very well, but there actually is a plane icon in that lower left corner. The It's making its first turn to come back in from the opposite direction so that it can pick out the circulation center where it looks like those light blue wind barbs is probably where the circulation center is because you have a southeast wind on one side and a northeast wind on the other. But as it flew in from the northeast, you see these yellow wind barbs here around 24, 25 degrees north, and the center's still down around 21ish, 20, well, between 22 and 23. So you've got gales here. The yellow barbs are all 50 to 45 to 50 knot winds, well to the northeast of the center. So now we'll see what it finds when it comes completely around and it makes a couple of, and then we get a couple of fixes on the actual center. So we're very early in this recon mission. Maybe if I try to, I'll try to remember to come back to this before we wrap things up with this live stream later on. The Hurricane Center, I don't know why they went to this big US view. I'm going to see if I can get that interactive map and get tighter because that's too big. It's um, it's hard to see what exactly they're doing here. Here's the Hurricane Center's rainfall forecast potential. So they've got 6 to 10, Joe, in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and a big area of 4 to 6, going all the way back into Florida. And of course, it's been raining there for several days now in Florida. And then those 4 to 6 inch rainfall amounts move up into Arkansas because this thing is eventually going to track up into the up the Mississippi River Valley. See if they where's that uh trying to find it here.
I just found a website that shows water temperature map of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and in the east, actually, right around Key West, the water temperatures are like 85 and 84 degrees, and in the east central area, or kind of like in the middle of the Gulf, it's like 81 or 80 degrees, and then up near Pensacola, they're indicating 86. Mobile, Alabama, 85. So as you get near to the land, as you get near the shelf, if you will, of the Gulf of Mexico, close into the coast, temps are in the mid 80s. But out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, it's more like 80 or so. So one has to wonder, Joe, as we get towards Sunday or Sunday late before landfall, and as it begins to pass over that much warmer water, maybe by 3 to 5 degrees, whether or not the Cristobal may suddenly get a real rapid intensification. If it's sitting, let's say, at 55 or 60, it might suddenly jump to like 70 or 75 within the span of only a few hours, if for nothing else, the interaction with that much warmer water surface temperature.
The blue on the map that I have up, the interactive forecast map from the Hurricane Center, you see where the tropical storm warnings are. I wish they could put a little bit more geography on this, but the arrival of gales on the coast is Sunday morning around 8 a.m. and then spreading inland. And you can see the storm track generally kind of on a north-northwest course from where it is now on the last advisory, just coming off the Yucatan coast there, and then moving north-northwestward, and then on up into southeastern Louisiana. But you'll notice the gales go out much further to the east than they do to the west, and that's because of the structure of this. It's usually the case with tropical systems. So you get the gales tend to be more a bit more extensive on the eastern side than on the western side. But from west to east, this thing really does have a fairly large area of gales. So as you pointed out, the tides are going to be a big problem here when we get to Sunday and Monday.
Incidentally, the Farmer's Almanac uh, for the period from June 4th to June 7th indicates, and I'm quoting here, early season hurricane threat, Florida.
Well, they were a little off. Early season hurricane threat, tropical storm threat, Louisiana. But
But what happens? But what happens if, for example, it makes it to let's say a Category 1 hurricane on Sunday or Sunday night before landfall in Louisiana? I mean, that still count as some semblance of oh wow,
I,
well they didn't miss by
well,
one.
you know what? All right, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. All right. So let's look at the GFS, and let's take a look at the European as well. The GFS has been fairly consistent. I think the Hurricane Center, for the last 3 days, that forecast track hasn't really varied very much. They may have adjusted the timing a little bit, but in terms of the actual track, they haven't really uh, they moved very little. This is Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. The GFS has what looks like a strong tropical storm sitting off the coast by about 60 or 70 miles, and then it kind of takes a slightly left turn at that point as it's going inland around 8 o'clock Sunday night, and then by 2 a.m. it is inland, but not that far inland, and then it starts to move northwestward and into central Louisiana by Monday morning with the feeder band of heavy rain still into southeastern Louisiana and down into southern Mississippi. Still, by the way, in Florida, because of the rain issues, you can see what's happening here overnight and tomorrow. Rain in almost the whole state into tomorrow night, and then early Sunday morning, still going on Sunday afternoon. But I guess as this thing maybe starts to tighten up a little bit, some of that area to the northeast just kind of gets sheared away to the northeast, and you're left with the core circulation that moves into the Louisiana coast, and then the rains over Florida do tend to diminish as we move into later Sunday and Monday. Here's the Europeans' view. And let's load it up, Mr. European. Where are you? Okay, round and round goes the circle of death. I wonder if everybody's trying to get on at the same time. I don't
Are
know.
you buffering?
Yep, this site cannot be reached. Perfect. Come on, Levi.
Well, what exactly are you looking for from the European?
No, tropical tidbits. I just wanted to pull up the European to see what the track was. How much further to the. It's been a little bit left of the other models all along. I wanted to just see if it was still that way.
Well, let me see if I could.
Unfortunately, his site has just crashed while we were on it. That really hasn't happened before that I can recall.
I'm gonna try and take a look here on my super secret. uh, see where it goes here on the super secret European thing. I've got the European up here, Joe, and it pretty much this is as of 0Z on Monday, which is 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it seems to be bringing the. All right, I'm going to need now to consult my atlas to see exactly where this is, where precisely the European is taking this. HIJKL. I'm looking for Louisiana.
MNOP.
I'm looking for Louisiana. Yes, it looks like they're trying to make landfall. Du- 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 du. Where the heck did my magnifying glass go? Oh, there. I'm sorry.
You're
Uh,
sorry.
um, geez, somewhere around Barataria Bay. Do you know where that is? Have you ever heard of
Yes.
that? Grand Isle,
Yeah, Grand
Louisiana.
Isle. But spell it. It's Batavia.
Barataria, Baratara or Barataria.
Gee, I'm trying to recall. It sounds familiar, but I can't put my finger on it.
The cities that are in the vicinity are Grand Isle, Venice, Boris, La Rose, Point de la Hache.
Don't try. Don't even try.
It looks like basically it's coming inland, almost due south of New
I mean,
Orleans, and
it's been 34 years since I've been in New Orleans, so
yeah,
it's been quite a long time. I do have the map, the tropical tidbits back. So let me bring it up here.
it looks like it makes landfall, and then it kind of curves to the northwest.
Yes,
Uh,
hang on. I'm trying to get a.
and in free in by 18Z Monday, 2 p.m. Monday, it looks like the center is situated close to Shreveport.
Yeah, there it is. It gets pretty wrapped up on the European by Sunday morning. It's south of Boothville by about 100 miles or so, or a little bit more, and then it turns northwestward. It's actually relatively close to what the GFS has in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the track. It is well inland by Monday morning in central Louisiana. By Tuesday morning, it's up on the Missouri, Arkansas, the northwest corner of Arkansas, right on the Missouri border. And from there, it goes wraps up as a 981 low up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the western part of the UP. And I wonder, looking at this and how wrapped up it gets, Joe, there might be some interesting severe weather that goes on in the upper Midwest with this as you get a wrapped up low that deep. It'll
Right.
be interesting to see. Now, this would be for Tuesday into Wednesday that we would see that happen. By the way, the European also has. We talked about the yesterday. I think that's this subtropical low that's out near east of Bermuda that moves westward. It does show up. It weakens and turns northwestward, passes about 250 miles to our east, and then it disappears as the next cold front approaches along about what is that, Thursday? Yeah, it looks like Thursday into Friday, and then we got another high behind that. So we got to get there first. The upper air, by the way, folks, really the whole formula with all of this, as far as the upper air structure is concerned, has been also very consistent. There has been oftentimes when you get deep into the hurricane season, you're looking at August and September when the upper air flow is not nearly as well defined, and sometimes you're struggling to figure out, okay, what's the motion going to be? Is there a short wave that is very weak, but we can't really see it, that it might or might not respond to? Is there a big upper high that might cause it to slow or turn westward? Well, in this instance, we've been talking about the fact that there's a ridge building from the Bahamas northeast to Bermuda. That's been occurring today, and for tonight into Saturday, an upper high settles over the Bahamas. There's also an upper high in West Texas that is building up into the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, so it's kind of building up around it. You pick it out really well. Oh, look at that. I had it pre-drawn from yesterday. I landed right on the same spots. I don't even have to erase anything. So it's in between, this upper high coming over the top. This one, the Cristobal is responding to the high in the Bahamas. So it moves north or northwestward. And then eventually, as this high, the one in Texas, comes over the top of it and builds, and you see it right there. Here it is. Here's your high. This is on Sunday. You got an upper high basically centered over Missouri. So eventually, this is going to wind up responding to that, and it's going to get shoved a little bit more to the northwest as it approaches the coast. That has been the scenario that the models have painted out for days. It's actually, I find it remarkable. There's been so little variation with this since about Tuesday, or back on Tuesday we were talking about this track, and it's just kind of hung on to it. No real change, and then on it goes on up into the middle Mississippi Valley.
It is. And when you think about the fact, Joe, that I know you like a week or 10 days ago, I don't know if you were, we were talking about how run after run, there was just big swirl of clouds and precipitation in the Gulf. That was the gyre, I guess.
Yeah, the
And it's done a pretty good job in even out in the longer term, a longer
mhm.
range. In
The GFS, you have to give it credit. I mean, we tend to hit on it a lot, but you know what? It's been advertising this going back almost 2 weeks ago.
right,
This idea, and it really is sort of really hung on to it strongly. And we always point out what is it going to get inside day 10? Is it going to get inside day 7 in the long range? And you don't really want to waste too much time or energy until you start to see that. And indeed, it finally did. Obviously, anytime for you young forecasters, or even some of you older forecasters out there, anytime you see higher pressures across the Gulf states, but not in the Gulf of Mexico, but up, say, inland, you see an upper high that builds out. Right at this point, it's gone. But let me just run it back a little bit. Whenever you see an upper high that's that far to the north, lower pressures are going to result all down in this region in the Gulf of Mexico, down into the Caribbean, and that's usually a signal that something could come out of this region. Now, there are a few other things have to be in place. It helps to have a lot of tropical activity going on in the form of maybe some tropical waves or upper troughs that are down in Central America, either on the Pacific side or on the Atlantic Basin side. And that was indeed the case here. But whenever you've got higher pressures up in this region here, this is going to mean lower pressures. If you got higher pressures up here, you're going to have lower pressures down to the south of it, and that for hurricane development, tropical storm development, is something you in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Northwest Caribbean. That's you look for that in in your longer range views when you look at the upper air, and it showed up quite nicely on the GFS, and then eventually it showed up on the European and on the Canadian models as well.
yeah, Brandon Doherty agrees with you, by the way. The GFS has been pretty good. I'd say more than just pretty good on this particular storm because, again, looking in the long range, it has been advertising something adverse or unsettled for the better part of the last 2 weeks. And, well, here we are, and here it is.
I want to see just what kind of let's see what kind of precip it shows. We actually are in the NAMS range too. We could take a look at what the NAM is doing, and then we're going to get to our weather.
And somebody mentioned on the chat board a few moments ago that since 1950, there have been only 12 hurricanes that have formed in the Atlantic Basin since 1950 in the month of June. So if we do get even a minimal hurricane out of this before landfall Sunday or Sunday night, that will be a very, very unusual occurrence.
All right, so here's the total accumulated precip on the GFS, and it's much more bullish than yesterday. It's got a stripe, Joe, of 6 to 10 inches that comes into southeast Louisiana, and also a couple of heavier stripes in parts of the Florida Panhandle. But you can kind of figure out where the center of the circulation is going to go, just to the left of where the heaviest precip is. So there's not a whole lot of precip to the west of it, but there is a whole ton of it out to the east. And I just want to bring up the 10-meter wind field, if I can find it. Everybody be patient. It's here somewhere.
I like how the heaviest rains, based upon the map you put up there from the GFS, the heaviest rains just literally follow Cristobal as it moves inland and then head straight north or northeast. Um, it's going to be pretty damp out over the Midwest, and at the same time, and I know we're going to get to our weather in a few moments, but in contrast, we're going to have a spell of really beautiful dry weather here for a number of days to come after we get past tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't seem to find the 10-meter wind. Hang on a second. I'm going to go to a wider view. Maybe I can pull it up this way. Why am I not seeing the 10-meter wind? Mean sea level pressure and 10-meter wind. Oh, there it is. It's on this wider view. I'm surprised it's not on the tight view. But there's your gales. If you want to follow the GFS in terms of the gales, there you can see the 40 to 50 knot sustained winds into southeast Louisiana and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast as the storm moves inland. And on the NAM model, you can go to the NAM. The NAM has a bit more of a robust wind field, I think. It also the NAM has a tighter, a much tighter looking system as it wobbles its way up northward and then northwestward. It goes in a little bit further to the left than the global models, but it's close enough. There's about maybe a 90-mile difference between where the NAM has it and maybe a 60-mile difference between the NAM has it and the GFS has it. So that's pretty close. And then it runs up northward. The rainfall on the NAM is coming up here, and we'll take a look at that. And the NAM really goes to town with the rain, Joe. It's got 10 inches plus moving into southeast Louisiana by when it's all said and done. So
I would believe that.
yeah, look, it's all pretty much been in front of us for days, and they're really I can't imagine any. The only surprise might be is if we wind up seeing this strengthen to a minimal hurricane. The one thing that might stand against it is the fact that the upper winds. If I get the Atlantic view on the GFS, we can take a look and see how what the shear looks like. Here we go. So we got that, and I got to go to. I'm going to have to go to the Atlantic view. Hang on, everybody. 200 to 850 wind shear. All right, so here we go. So we'll just start it from where it is. Moves off the Yucatan Peninsula. There's moderate shear going all the way up. So it's not the most. It's not the. I would say it's not a setup for rapid strengthening. Plus, the large systems tend to strengthen a bit more slowly than the smaller, tighter ones. So that might be another reason why you'll see this get hindered just a bit. And there is some increasing shear once it approaches the coast. But I still maybe an outside chance that it gets up to minimal hurricane. But it could very well get to 60 knots, 55 or 60 knots before it's all said and done.
The list of June hurricanes, 1950 to 2019. I'm looking at them right now. There were actually two that crashed into the Texas Gulf Coast area.
Well, Audrey was one.
Audrey was
in 57.
Right. And then there was Bonnie in 1986. And then there were two storms that hit the Florida Panhandle in June. One was Alma in 1966, June, and the other one that's near and dear to your heart and mine, Joe, and we remember this one because this came all the way up to our neck of the woods, Agnes. In 1972.
Agnes.
Right. Not Abner, but Agnes.
Agnes. Wasn't Agnes Alice's sister?
Yes, that's right.
And Agnes Gooch, played by Peggy Cass in Maine.
Right.
Agnes. No offense to any Agneses in the audience. What's that?
All men are beasts.
All men are beasts. Yes.
That.
So let's go local. Then we'll come back later. We'll check the recon and we'll see what's going on. I'm going to bring up Mount Holly's radar because the Upton radar is still down, but Mount Holly's is right on top of all the action tonight. And by the way, we have flash flood watches, just to go over this really quick for you folks. Flash flood watches for Central and South Jersey southeast and south central Pennsylvania, down into parts of Maryland, also down into southwest Virginia. The down in Florida, flash flood watches there. Flash flood watches also along the central Gulf coasts because of the tropical system. We also have flash flood watches in western Colorado, while they have red flag warnings in east parts of central Colorado. It's a little weird, but I guess it has to do with whatever shadow effect goes on there. And then you have red flag warnings in western Utah. You have flash flood watches in eastern Utah. And those red flag warnings go down into parts of Nevada and northwest Arizona and western New Mexico. We also have some scattered heat advisories up for parts of eastern Kansas and eastern Oklahoma. A working severe thunderstorm watch right now in central Mississippi. And that's pretty much it as far as the severe weather goes. But let's take a look at what's happening locally, because we have this frontal boundary that's trying to edge through kind of a, there's like a lead upper trough that's approaching, and it's lined up Precip in a band that runs northeast southwest, and you see it here over Long Island now in southern Connecticut. I think I might be raining out there. I can't hear anything, but there are some. There've been some thunderstorms across central New Jersey for the last 4 hours or so, and there's a you see that green box there. That's a flash flood warning that's up for parts of Monmouth and northern Ocean County. And then you've got more rain and downpours south and west of Philadelphia down into the Baltimore, Washington D.C. area. And if you notice, folks, the line is actually not moving. The cells are moving southwest to northeast, but the actual orientation of the line is basically stationary. So all of this stuff is training from southwest to northeast. The same areas are getting rain over and over and over again,
That's tough.
as opposed to when you get a cold front that's moving with a line of storms that just swings west to east. So this is a situation where you do wind up with some flash flooding issues. I'm going to drop down south to the Dover radar here, and you can see it from what's going on down in Washington D.C. and Baltimore. Also, some big thunderstorms with heavy rain down to Fredericksburg and then going southwest of there. Also, some heavy showers and downpours around in Pennsylvania, south around Harrisburg, down to York and to Lancaster. And let's jump down to the Wakefield radar. And this is where it starts to thin out a little bit. You've got some rain showers at Charlottesville down to Lynchburg, but the stronger cells are east of Charlottesville to Fredericksburg and moving to the east. And then it'll just jump north so we can take a look back to Dover. Let's go up to State College in Pennsylvania. Nope, that's Mount Holly. Well, we already did Mount Holly. So here's the back edge. So you go to the State College radar, and there really isn't very much going on here. That's where the back edge is as it's swinging away to the east. Got some big thunderstorms. Just moved out of Akron and heading southeastward in Ohio and moving toward southwestern Pennsylvania. We'll see what those wind up holding together. And it looks like some rain showers just came out of Sandusky, Ohio.
There's a very famous amusement park in Sandusky. So I am told.
Yes, Doris Day makes a reference of that in one of her movies with Rock Hudson.
Really? I didn't know. I just know it from my
was it
my brother-in-law who's
no. I'm sorry. I take that back. Cary Grant. Doris Day makes references to the baseball team in Sandusky, along with the girls of Sandusky, to Cary Grant in A Touch of Mink.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All
right. So that takes care of that. So let's go to the wide radar view, and you can see it here. What's happening with these showers and storms? Just a very narrow band, but if you happen to be, if it happens to be sitting over you, it's problematic. And also, just want to take a look down across northern Mississippi. You got this Boeing line of thunderstorms. That's where the severe thunderstorm watch is, up in northern Mississippi, central Mississippi, with these thunderstorms moving into that zone as they drop southward. And you also have some strong thunderstorms in east central Alabama and across central Georgia from west to east into South Carolina. And those are moving. Looks like they're moving slightly south of. They're moving southeast or east southeast, and we'll see. They'll probably start to wind down a bit once we get to the cover of darkness. So let's go with what the models are doing for the weather across the eastern part of the United States, and we'll start. Let's bring up the upper air. And it looks like we're going to get into I think we're going to get into a sweet spot for at least 3 or 4 days here, Joe. The upper air is lined up where we're going to be in a ridge position, and there's the flow from Canada is close enough to us so that it's not going to be crazy warm. It'll be actually, I think it's going to be nice and delightful Sunday and Monday with highs in the 70s. Here's your upper trough for Saturday. Did you resolve whether you're going to mention a shower or storm for tomorrow?
I am.
You
In
put it
fact,
in?
I did put it in, and I think that I noticed that the folks over at SPC Storm Prediction Center, they started off today with our area wide open with no thunderstorm threat, not even a general thunderstorm threat. They had, however, thunderstorms to the north of us up over Maine. They had thunderstorms to the south of us over the Delmarva region, and then in the afternoon update, they just arbitrarily covered the whole Northeast with
Northeast?
general
Well,
thunderstorm.
this is the upper trough that's responsible that comes through on Saturday.
But
Uh,
the cold front too is moving as expected, as it normally does. The cold front is moving slower, and I'll tell you what, Joe, I could see tomorrow for the first time since October the 2nd, Central Park getting to 90 degrees tomorrow, just before that cold front
Not
arrives.
impossible with a west wind.
With a west wind, as I said, as I was about to say, with westerly winds. And I'm putting a 1 in 5 chance, a 20% chance of a shower or a pop up thunderstorm. And let me say, this is going to be dependent upon how much moisture is left by midday and afternoon for a pop up to occur. But let me tell you, if we get any pop up storms tomorrow in the midday and afternoon, they could be real nasty because the lifted index tomorrow on the NAM for 2 o'clock in LaGuardia is -5.
Oh boy.
So that's the kind of, you get these sudden blow ups,
Yeah.
and they can be very localized, but they could also provide you with quite a bit of weather in a relatively
Very short
short
period of
time.
time.
Yeah.
Once that upper trough goes by, though, this ridge builds into the east. You've got this trough in the west, very deep trough that comes into the western part of the United States. For this time of year, it's a bit of a powerhouse, and that is going to lift up into southern Canada. It picks up Cristobal. You see it there in Louisiana. It picks it up, and that's why it takes it straight up the Mississippi River Valley, and you wind up with a wrapped up low in the western lakes. But we've got this ridge here. We're now into Wednesday. This ridge is still in position, and then it just sort of flattens out. You have that coastal system that kind of wobbles back westward, and then eventually the upper trough in Canada, in southern Canada, and over the Great Lakes, swings through the Northeast late next week, and then moves out into New. It takes the whole weekend for it. That trough literally takes the entire weekend to move through. You know what? That's next weekend. We'll deal with that when we get there. And there's another powerhouse trough that comes into the west. And by the way, we noticed this yesterday. Actually, saw this a few days ago. I just want to bring the full map up here, the surface map, and let's just roll it back. Okay, so if you look at the west, come Sunday, that is snow up in parts of Idaho and Oregon, northern Nevada, northeastern California, western Montana. That's from that deep upper trough that's coming into the west. And then, of course, you've got this low that gets wrapped up in the lakes. So watch out maybe for, Tuesday, Wednesday. Looks like the GFS wants to have something going on here Tuesday night in the middle and upper Mississippi Valley and in the western lakes. And maybe there'll be some severe weather issues with that as that low deepens and moves on up to the northeast. Joe, that gets down to a 978, 975 low. 976 low over James Bay for
Yeah.
early June. That's crazy. That's a really wrapped up animal.
How many standard deviations is that for this time of the year? That is indeed. But also, Joe, and it maybe not on the same magnitude as what we saw about a week ago or whatever. Uh, the ridge builds so strongly over upstate New York and into New England. I could see places in upstate New York and northern New England reaching up toward 90, whereas down here it'll be a closer to a, let's say 80 or 80,
We
80 degrees.
we just saw that. We just
Right,
saw that last week
right.
with
But maybe not as strong. I mean, like for example, Montreal got to 97. I wouldn't think it's going to get that hot, but
no.
I could see temperatures. I could see temperatures in northern New York State and parts of northern New England again approaching or maybe going up to around 90. That's crazy.
By the way, the NAM 3 for tomorrow around noontime fires up some big storms just north of you, up the Hudson Valley and then toward Albany and western Mass, northwestern Connecticut. And, it has really teeny tiny cells, southwest Connecticut to about New York City. Now, I don't want you to confuse those with itsy bitsy cells. These
No,
look like teeny tiny cells.
teeny weeny.
Is
You
it
want a
teeny
teeny.
weeny?
You want a
No,
teeny weeny. You want a teeny weeny cell or an itsy
piece or an
bitsy
itsy bitsy,
cell?
right? This is a teeny weeny piece. That's an itsy bitsy piece.
Yeah,
Um,
that's got to be the cold front, or at least a pre uh, frontal squall line of sorts. So yeah, that's going to be it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, the parameters based upon what I saw on the NAM with the lifted index, some of these storms could be rather intense, rather tight, or very localized. But where they do occur, they're going to put on maybe quite a show for 5 or 10 minutes.
by the way, folks, here's the HRRR for tonight, which is a little underdone with regards to what's on the radar. But you can see that eventually, once we get past midnight, you start to shift this area, begins to finally shift to the east, and it moves out. And the HRRR, by the way, at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, has actually more than just teeny weeny cells. Or itsy bitsy. It's actually got some thunderstorms coming down in northeast PA, the Hudson Valley over you into Connecticut, and over me tomorrow by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's got some
Right.
strong cells moving through. There's some scattered cells down in parts of southern New Jersey and into Maryland. So the HRRR is even more bullish with the possibility of a very, it's a very narrow, very small cells. They'll be moving fairly quickly, but as you said, you could wind up seeing it getting rather nasty for a short period of time before the cells move out, and then finally the humidity starts to drop off.
Right. Whoever did the update this afternoon and who finally, thankfully, put our area in the area of at least general thunderstorm coverage has marginal risk of severe to the north and east and to the south and west. And I said, why did you do it that way? Why don't you just connect both zones and include our area? Because as I said, we could see some pretty nasty stuff ourselves here tomorrow. And I'll bet you that tomorrow in the morning, first thing, they're going to do that. I'll bet you we're going to be in a marginal area of severe.
Do you
Uh,
see? I can't see the chat board right now, Joe. You can see it. Joe Brandon posted a question on the chat board. Can you find it? The chairman has just let me know about this.
well, I'm backing up here.
You
I'm
may have
looking.
to go back closer to the beginning because he sent me the message at 7:13. It's now 7:48.
Right, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the super chat. He says on behalf of him and also Anthony, whoever
Oh,
Anthony is.
maybe it's Anthony Orr.
Must be Anthony Orr, yeah.
Um, yeah, can you see Joe Brandon?
I'm starting from the very beginning here. Ja, ja. A lot of posts on the chat board tonight. Joe Brandon.
I'm looking also.
Hmm. Well, I'm almost at the end, and I didn't see Joe
Don't
Brandon.
see it. JMJ Show channel. Thanks for your support by being here. Really appreciate it. I'd like to welcome folks that are on the chat board that we don't often see. So it's nice to see. Joe and I both love to see the participation on the chat board. I'm also looking too. I'm not seeing it either.
I did not see it. I
Um,
started all the way at the beginning.
let's see. Jason Schaefer, you're watching Lee Goldberg. You know, Lee Goldberg watches this show religiously. He lives and dies by every breath that we take.
But Lee is one of the good guys, and he has been doing the weather from his house. You know, we actually get a chance to see when we watch Lee Goldberg. He has his home weather station in beautiful red LED
Yeah.
uh, lights up behind him on his wall. Um, so that's it's nice to see that people are watching the weather even from their home base. Brandon Doherty, thanks very much for the super chat hit. And Joe, I can't find that. I can't find that. That
Unless it was Brandon Doherty and Scott, the way, let me reread the message when he said Joe Brandon. Maybe he was saying Joe, comma, Brandon was asking a question from last night. Hang on a second. Um,
water temps around Louisiana. That's one of the messages. 82 to
oh, that's
83.
probably what it is. Brandon Doherty must be. But do you see Brandon have a question up there? Oh no, Brandon left me a question from last night. I still can't find it, Brandon. I'm sorry. I don't know where did you send it? My brain is not. I got to write this stuff down.
I see. Here's one question from Brandon. He says, "Why do most hurricanes go west of New Orleans? Katrina did. Camille did. It seems common."
Yeah, I don't know that there's any particular reason why it happens that way. Um, it
And
could
now
be
then he changes his mind.
it could just be a string of coincidences that it has.
Well, then a few questions down, he says, "No, Camille went east of New Orleans."
Yeah, Camille went east of New Orleans.
Yeah,
Betsy went over New Orleans, and there's a whole slew of them that went, to the west.
right.
I'm not 100% sure why. There probably is some kind of reason that they get steered more toward the Texas coast. But it could also just be a matter of timing. You go through 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There was a long stretch where Florida didn't get a single hurricane back
Brandon,
back in the
Brandon
seven. There was a period. I can't remember exactly, but there was a very long stretch of years where Florida did not have a single hurricane landfall. I think it was right before Hurricane Andrew made landfall. But then if you go back, you get a string, where you get one or two every year. And then there was one year in the early 2000s where I think they had four majors in 6 weeks. So it all comes in bunches. Um,
Brandon Dorothy also asks, "Joe and Joe, why don't you guys do an online course?"
well, that's a conversation that I should have,
Yeah,
Joe, after the show's over.
you know the academic, the local academic centers, uh, colleges, I should say, they I've looked around to possibly teach an adjunct course either in astronomy or meteorology. Unfortunately, they say we're interested, but you have to have a master's, which is something that I don't have, and I know
Right,
you
and
don't.
I don't have either.
Even though we have up here, we probably have a ton of experience and know more than our fair share of stuff to teach. And I've actually taught introductory meteorology at the Hayden Planetarium. This goes back in the 80s and early 90s. I actually got a letter from the director of the American Museum of Natural History complimenting me on some of the letters that he was getting from my students on how much they enjoyed it. But with all of that, still need the little extra brand on the sheepskin
Yep.
that states you're a master's degree owner in order to officially
Right, and I'm too
teach
old
the
to sit in school. I just
yeah,
am.
yeah.
Okay, so here's Brandon's question. It is. Hang on a second. I lost it again. Oh, Brandon just posted the question again at 7:51. Sorry for all of this. I guess we should be a little more organized. Oh, what is the earliest recorded tropical storm? On record.
On record?
Yes.
My goodness, that could that have gone back to colonial times, perhaps?
Yes.
Yes. Well, gee, we all the colonies began what in 1776 or whatever. Is it possible he's talking about something that Thomas Jefferson or John Adams or even George Washington?
George Washington was, 1771
Wow.
over Cuba.
Over Cuba.
Yes.
Oh, could we get Ricky Ricardo maybe to sing a song about that? Or
He's so bad. All right. Now let's go back because I've got a couple of other things here. Hang on. So here we go. So what word in the dictionary has the most definitions? It's a three-letter word.
three-letter word.
Mm-hmm.
What could be the well? I knew a guy named Nat Birnbaum. Bug. No. A three-letter word.
And you probably use this word every day at some point or another.
But B-U-T?
No. Set. S-E-T. It has 700 different definitions.
You're kidding me.
That's, according to the chairman, that's the case. Now, what day of the week can make another word if you rearrange the letters?
Would it be one of those longer ones like Wednesday, Thursday, or Saturday? It's a good thing I'm not like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire right now because I would fail miserably here on this question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, look, it's one of 7. So it,
All right, I'll take a shot and say Wednesday.
Monday.
Monday?
Monday. You can rearrange the letters for the word dynamo.
Okay.
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 And what is the only number whose letters are in actual ABC alphabetical order? It's less than 100. I'll give you that hint.
And I would presume the letters aren't duplicated. That it's all
no. And the thing was, if you look at the letters, they all are in the order that they would be if A B C D E F G H I J
right.
and so on. So the letters are going to be also, in that order. Now, it's under 100, so you've got 99 possibilities.
You know who would get this? The fabled Encyclopedia Brown. Remember those stories that we used to read about in 6th grade? This kid who knew everything.
Oh, yeah.
Or Doogie Howser. I never knew when we started this show that I would need to know such a wide variation of questions.
Of stuff.
Here. Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, I'm stumped on this. What would it be?
40. F-O-R-T-Y. F-O-R-T-Y.
You're right.
So you got a question for me?
No, I don't.
You don't? Scott says you got a question. He sent you a question.
Really?
Yeah. But now you can't find it.
Well, you know what they did? I don't know if they did it to you.
Facebook's got, I actually, weeks ago, they said if I wanted to try it, I just didn't have the patience at the time. But I actually like the new look.
They forced it on us. All right, here we go. I think I found it.
Okay.
Hang on. Joe check at 7:51.
Already did. We got it. That was Brandon's question.
Okay. Okay, I think this is what he has posted tonight. Category 90-degree days question. When I asked Joe how many 90-degree days for this year, he said 12. He also thought there would be no 90-degree days in June. Since 1869, in Central Park, how many Junes were there no 90-degree days?
Oh, boy. I don't know.
Well, in fact,
I'll take a wild guess. 14.
you'll have to double that and add a couple. It was 30.
30?
30.
All
Now,
right.
and the second half of that question is, when was the last time that there were no 90-degree days in June?
I have no idea.
2016.
Oh, so it wasn't that long ago.
It's only 4 years ago.
Okay. Well, I have to get through tomorrow because you're forecasting near 90 for New York City with the
Actually,
west wind.
actually, I said 89, and I said I didn't think that we would get to 90, but we're certainly going to take a good college try at it tomorrow, I think.
Okay.
So
So let's wrap it up because my screen is starting to freeze up. So we'll be back. What's your deal for tomorrow? Are you around?
I'm not doing anything for the moment.
All right.
And,
So
who
if
are
we
you
do
doing?
something tomorrow, um, let's try. My day's kind of iffy tomorrow, so I'll shoot you a message. Maybe we'll do something tomorrow, a fast one tomorrow evening, if
Well,
that
yeah,
works.
especially if we see some pop-ups happening around, noon or 1 o'clock, it might make for an interesting, quick little chat.
Okay. I may not be around noon or 1 o'clock, uh, if I can't do it then, we'll try for something in the early evening.
You think about it, Joe. We don't know where we're going to be at any given moment. We may not be around tomorrow or Sunday either. So it's
Well, on that particular note, just in case we happen to be around, we'll try to do something tomorrow. And in the event that we are still around on Sunday, we'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the Sunday morning Joe and Joe weather show.
the late Jim Jensen was having an interview with Senator Jacob Javits after Javits had been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease.
Hmm.
And of course, we remember Jim Jensen as not asking the most tactful questions. And the first
Right.
question in the box was, "Well, hi, Senator. How does it feel to be terminal?"
He actually has said that?
He actually asked Senator Javits, "How does it feel to be terminal?"
I mean,
And you know what?
I was the first thing that popped in my mind was how much time have you got? You know, he really asked that question.
He really asked that question.
I
And
mean,
to which,
he didn't ask it in a sort of off the cuff way.
oh,
I would
you
imagine
remember Jim Jensen?
I imagine he asked it with that sort of very serious Jim Jensen tone of
Oh,
his.
well, Senator, how does
How
it
does it
feel to be
feel to be
terminal?
terminal?
And Javits, I was watching it when this happened. He broke into a big, almost like a Santa Claus smile, looked Jim Jensen directly in the eye and said, "Jim, we're all
We're all
terminal."
terminal. Exactly. All right. Well, on that wonderful note, we'll say goodnight. This show is terminal. We'll see you tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, for sure on Sunday. Good night, everybody.
Good night.